Many startup founders struggle to identify their true competition. They either believe they don't have any or incorrectly position against the wrong competition. Both of these can be costly mistakes. In this video, I'm going to share why this happens, how to identify your true competition, and how to use these insights to strengthen the position of your product. Hi there, if you're new to this channel, my name is Ash Maurya. I'm an entrepreneur and author and the creator of the one-page business modeling tool, Lean Canvas. On this channel, I share systematic strategies and techniques for starting and growing a business. Now, when asked about competition, startup founders typically fall into two camps. The "we have no competition" camp and the "we are better than the competition" camp. Within the first camp, some founders genuinely believe this to be true, while others only pretend to believe it. The founders that genuinely believe they have no competition do so because they manage to convince themselves that they have indeed built something so innovative and disruptive that there is no competition. As we'll see shortly, this is a fallacy. No matter how disruptive or innovative the product, every successful product in the world always has competition when it enters the market. Founders who pretend they have no competition do so because they don't want to publicly acknowledge that the competition exists. In a product pitch, for instance, they leave out the competition because they don't want to tip off or steer their prospects to them. This too is a mistake because sophisticated customers will comparison shop anyway. And when they do so without the founders in the room, the founders have no influence over how the comparison is made, which puts them at a disadvantage. This brings us to the first counterintuitive insight. Stronger positioning comes from anchoring against the competition, not by pretending they don't exist. So between these two camps, the "we are better" camp is the better path. That said, communicating better has its set of pitfalls too. When communicating better, founders often rely on either trying to convey that they have more features or better features, and some try to do both. A popular way to convey more features is with a feature chart like this one, where you list all your features over the competition. The first obvious problem with taking on more features is that it increases the scope of what you need to build. When you are first launching an MVP, this increases both your time and money investment. Next, not all features are created equal. Communicating too many benefits at once dilutes your unique value proposition, which can get lost in the noise. However, by far the most common pitfall I see here is comparing your product to the wrong competitors. Many startups think they are competing with other startups that look just like them. They anchor and position against these other startups, but if no one or not enough people are using these other startups, they aren't your true competition. These startups could be just as clueless as you are, and when you anchor and position against them and move at 100 miles an hour in a different direction, you could still drive your startup off the wrong cliff. For example, say you're building collaboration or analytics software, your true competition may not be another high-tech startup, but email or spreadsheets. Email and spreadsheets are free and ubiquitous, but they are never listed as competitors on the feature matrix. So what about conveying better features? A popular way to convey better features is to use a 2x2 feature quadrant like this one. This is where you pick two axes and show that your product is in the top right quadrant. While this is certainly an effective way of visualizing your difference, the real question is whether this difference matters to your customers. If it doesn't matter to them, then it doesn't matter. This brings us to the next insight. Your MVP is all about balancing the trade-off between minimum scope and maximum value. In order to build something fast, you have to think minimum feature set, and in order to build something that grabs your customer's attention, you have to think maximum value. So how do you do this? By getting yourself out of the solution context trap. And here's how that happens. When you get hit with an awesome idea, it's tempting to quickly formulate a possible solution and ask, what problem can I solve with this solution? This unfortunately triggers the hammer problem. When you have decided that you want to build a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail. This is when you either start believing that just because nobody else is building hammers, you have no competition, or you start positioning your hammer as a better hammer because maybe it's bigger or heavier or has some other attribute. Don't worry, this happens to everyone. I still struggle with this constantly, which is why I gave this phenomenon a name. I call it the innovator's bias. Like any bias, the best way to address it isn't by trying to avoid it, because biases work at an unconscious level. The best way to address a cognitive bias is by devising tripwires to detect them when they occur and thinking processes to overcome them. I devised such an antidote to the innovator's bias, something I call the innovator's gift. The basic premise behind the innovator's gift is quite simple. Some of you might even think it's too simple, but it forces you to think differently about your competition. And here it is. New problems worth solving come from old solutions. In other words, when you're trying to build something new and innovative, sure, you need an innovative solution, but you don't want an innovative problem. An innovative problem is one that your customers either don't know they have or one that requires extensive explanation. Instead, you want to address a visceral problem that your customers regularly feel, know, and struggle with. Think back to any successful product. Before there was ride-sharing, there were taxis. Before we stayed in Airbnbs, we hired hotels. And before we drove cars, we used horse-drawn carriages. Do you see the common thread here? Every new solution had a predecessor old solution. And the reason the new solution got adopted wasn't because it solved some new problem, but rather an old one. Ordering a taxi over the phone was painful. Where do you stay when all the hotels are sold out? And horse-drawn carriages weren't fast enough, and big cities were literally filthy with piles and piles of horse manure. The best way to uncover these types of problems isn't asking, what problem can I solve with my solution, but rather what's broken with the current existing alternatives. This is precisely why you won't find a competitor box on my one-page business modeling tool, the Lean Canvas, but instead an existing alternatives box. When people think of competition, they often think about products in the same category. But when you think more generally about existing alternatives, you transcend category. This is how you move from the solution context to the bigger context. Okay, let's next look at how you apply the innovator's gift to strengthen your product's positioning. There are 3 tenets in the innovator's gift. You've seen the first one already. New problems come from old solutions. The implication here is that there is always an old way, no matter how innovative or disruptive the product. For those of you who believe you have no competition, this is a foundational tenet that you must reconcile and internalize before you can effectively apply the innovator's gift. Now, even if you believe this to be true with your product, I'd still encourage you to challenge this statement as a universal truth and try to find an exception to this rule. Here's how to do this. Try to think of a product, this can be at any time in history, that was so disruptive or innovative that it had no competition or existing alternative. If you can find one or more products, leave a comment below. Based on your responses, I'll create a follow-up video and address each one. Once you're on board with the first tenet, the next 2 flow quite easily. The next tenet in the innovator's gift is that all innovation is fundamentally about causing a switch from some old way to your new way. And the best way to cause the switch is to break this old way. Not literally, but through positioning. The best way to do this is in your product pitch, which is why you don't want to ignore your competition and instead identify who you're truly trying to cause a switch from. Some of the best product pitches start by acknowledging their true competition, then go on to break these alternatives by demonstrating how they get the job done a whole lot better. Steve Jobs was a master at this. When he introduced the iPhone in 2007, he set the context by identifying his true competition as other smartphones. He then went on to break existing smartphones for everybody with this product quadrant, where he plotted smartness on one axis against ease of use. Regular cell phones were not so smart and not so easy to use. Smartphones were smarter, but much harder to use. Why? Because half the phone is taken up by a plastic keyboard that is not all that easy to type on. And then he posed the question.
So how are we going to take this to a mobile device?
This is when he shows you a picture of the iPhone as a single piece of glass, and he has the audience where he wants them. The rest, as they say, is history. That's the power of the innovator's gift at work. It's not about solving new problems no one cares about, but demonstrating how you solve your customers' existing problems a whole lot better. If you enjoyed this video, I've got lots more videos like this one coming. Please subscribe to the channel below and leave a comment. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.